Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurants, art, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Poppy Tooker, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. Hello, Miss Poppy. Hi there.
Hey, Peg.
Hey. Ian McNulty, food writer for the Times Picayune, New Orleans Advocate. Hello, Ian. Hi.
Hi, Peggy.
Hey. Alfred Richard, he's back, movie critic for WWL-TV. Hello, Mr. Alfred.
Hello, Peggy. Hello.
Hey. And Alan Smason of theatercriticism.com and the Crescent City Jewish News. Hi, Alan.
Hey there.
You know, Poppy, I sure hate to see a local restaurant chain say goodbye, but we have to.
Well, Peggy, this is just a harbinger of things to come. And what I want to talk about first today is food and drink in New Orleans and things we have to think about. So, Semolina announced this week that they were closing their last door after 29 years. That's a long run. And then we also heard that Nine Roses French Quarter location that's been there for 5 years, very successful, closed, not coming back. So what's new in the landscape here? Well, out there in Metairie on Veterans Highway, there's a brand new thing called Total Wine. This is the largest independent wine cellar in the United States who's opening up their first location down here. It's in the old Best Buy between Causeway and Clearview, and it's like a superstore. There's more than 8,000 wines, more than 3,000 spirits, and nearly 3,000 beers there. So there's a huge humidor. They claim to be the biggest cigar retailer in the United States. There's a whole aisle of just bitters. Now, it's an incredible place, and if you're into craft cocktails, if you're into almost anything alcohol, you're going to enjoy a trip through there. But I just wanted to ask people today on Independence Weekend, what about our local independents? I want everybody to think about them too. Swirl, Pearl, Elio's, Martin's, Winos. Who's going to take care of you? The locals. So vote with your dollars this 4th of July, because every penny you spend on food and drink outside and bringing into your home, it counts and it registers. So please help support those that we love.
Independent Cavo, Dornags, as you said, Martins, I know, the list is long. Very good to think about. Thank you so much, Poppy. And moving on to Ian. Ian, when I think catfish, I certainly think Barrows.
Barrows Shady Inn, right? Of course. That was an icon of the New Orleans that existed pre-Katrina out there in Holly Grove, just off of Earhart. Usually the place you saw in your rearview mirror when you missed it and thought, I got to circle back again. Well, Barrows Catfish is the next generation read on that restaurant from the same family, from the family that grew up in Barrows Shady Inn. They opened Barrows Catfish 2 years ago this week, right before Essence Festival. This would have been Essence Festival weekend. The reason that I wrote about them this week was they are an example of a place, Peggy, that is not just surviving through this pandemic, through the shutdowns, they're actually thriving. And the way that they've done that is by combining some very old traditions, namely that catfish, with some new innovations and different ways of thinking about how they can serve their customers. This is something that I know restaurant people and restaurant customers, frankly, all across the country are having to grapple with. Well, Barrows Catfish is a small family-run restaurant that's really pulling it off. When I checked in with them recently, they told me that business has not just stayed steady, but has actually increased as some new people have sought them out. The way that they've been doing it is through curbside. The dining room is closed. When the restaurant reopened for business, they decided everything was going to be takeout, everything was going to be curbside service. They call it full service curbside because they still do put a lot of emphasis on the service to the customer. And I can tell you that some people, myself included, have simply gotten their carton of catfish and eaten it right there in the parking lot. So it's not so different after all. But for those who haven't heard of it, Barrows Shady Inn was one of the longest running Black-owned restaurants in New Orleans. It goes back to 1943. And the family today tells me when they think about everything that their family went through the generations for a business that began in the era of segregation to thrive and become a New Orleans institution, well, they're taking the challenges today in stride. And they're cooking up the same catfish, thick, juicy, nice crust, and a little trickle of that cayenne flavor. So it's been great to see a success story come through one of these small family restaurants that's finding a way in these times.
Appreciate their finding a way. And just a reminder for everybody, it's right off Carrollton on Earhart. Is that right? Just a few blocks off Earhart towards Metairie. Would that be accurate?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If you remember where Barrows Shady Inn used to be pre-Katrina, it's just a few blocks closer in towards Carrollton.
Okay.
So it's easy to spot.
In the same neighborhood. Okay, thank you so much. And moving over to Alfred with movie theater news.
Yes, indeed, Peggy. One of the things that we've been noticing, of course, the coronavirus and COVID-19 has really played havoc on movie theaters. And we're going to focus on some of the local theaters later on. But as for the big ones, for example, the AMCs and the Regals, AMC's had a bit of a go in the last few weeks. They were planning to open. At one point, they were saying they might open at the end of June. Then they said, well, we're going to push that back to July 15th. But then they said we were going to reopen without the requirement for people wearing masks. After countless number of people on social media and in the media themselves saying this is not a good idea, they changed their mind and said now masks will be required. But then, because we're now seeing, unfortunately, we're seeing upticks in states like Texas, Arizona, Florida, and California, AMC, the company that's in charge of the movie theater chain, has decided to push back their opening even further. They're now planning to open in July 30th. Another reason besides that, two major films that were supposed to come out later this summer. One, Christopher Nolan's newest film, Tenet. Now, this is one I've been looking forward to, but he has decided he's going to wait until later in the year for that to come out later this summer. Hopefully it will be released in theaters. And Disney's Mulan. Yes, the live-action version. We all know Disney's redoing almost every one of their classic animated films in a live-action form. This one was scheduled to come out as well earlier this spring and into the summer. Well, they're now saying they're going to wait until AMC opens up. So it won't be until about the end of July, the beginning of August, before we may see AMC join the rest of the pack. But we're going to talk about our local ones coming up.
Okay, thank you so much. And Alan, news from the New Orleans Theater Network.
Yes, Peggy, I spoke to A.J. Allegra with the New Orleans Theater Network this week. And, given phase 2 restrictions that we're still in and looking for all of the producing companies to see how they're going to set up for the future, they've been sending out surveys, 2 different sets, actually. First to the artists involved and the other one to the actual companies, the producing organizations, as to how they're going to transition and how they're going to move forward. They're also planning on implementing a multi-organizational approach to battling racism, an anti-racist training, if you will. And it's going to be dealing with a website partner called Undoing Racism. The New Orleans Theater Network is also going to try to transition from what was essentially a support mechanism for their promotional and their marketing into now an artist-centered support network. So that's going to be great news. Meanwhile, though, the Broadway League dealt New Yorkers and theater lovers a blow this week when they announced that Broadway theaters would remain shuttered until January the 3rd, 2021. Of course, that means no Christmas, no New Year's, and we'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
The big news, though, Peggy, and you and I both know this, is that for this July 4th weekend, Disney Plus is going to be streaming Hamilton on their channel. And of course, we just want to let everybody know that this is going to be seen starting really today and continuing on. I'm not quite sure how long it'll be available. It cost Disney $75 million for this particular project. But I want to say one thing. Lin-Manuel Miranda titled this work Hamilton, an American Musical. And on this July 4th weekend, we should remember that it denotes the fact that this is a country of immigrants, and that our founding fathers, were specifically meant to be played by people of color in this particular, I would say, revolutionary show. And I'd like to just mention there's certain people in here who are mentioned, like John Lawrence, who led the 1st Black Regiment during the Revolutionary War. A lot of people don't know some of the characters that were brought out in Hamilton. It really has a great effect. Just like the Gershwin said that there would not be any white people playing Porgy and Bess in that production. And Rodgers and Hammerstein said they only wanted Asians or Asian Americans to play the roles in Flower Drum Song. It's been set up this way specifically to give opportunities to people of color, and we hope that people will not get disenfranchised over the fact that these people, the founding fathers, were slave owners. We're getting some pushback on Twitter this week, and I'm a little bit dismayed by that. I hope calmer minds will lead the discussion on that. And Peggy, I know if it's July the 4th, then you and I will both be in front of the TV watching our favorite DVD, 1776. I hope that people will take advantage of that this weekend as well. And that's it.
All right. Thank you. Poppy, news from Magazine Street.
Well, with restaurant closings, there's also restaurant openings. And new on Magazine Street is Cho Thai. Now, this is in the location that was formerly Warbucks. Most recently, it was also Amici and Biblos. So we've seen lots of restaurants through this space. And what this new concept is, Jimmy Cho, who has been famous on the West Bank for his restaurant Banana Blossom, this is an effort that Jimmy Cho is doing with a new partnership. He has formed a partnership with BRG. Of course, that's the Best Restaurant Group. Apparently, John's partner, Octavio Mantilla, is a big fan of Jimmy Cho's food on the West Bank. And so they proposed this, and now Jimmy's having the full corporate experience there on Magazine Street, but he has brought his delicious food. It's a smaller, more concentrated menu: crab fried rice, grilled shrimp pad thai, the short rib Chiang Mai noodles, yum. It's very interesting, this new version of Jimmy Cho's food. The chef de cuisine there, interestingly, just came from being the chef de cuisine at Shaya. There's another famous last name for you. So over at Cho Thai, they're serving only takeout until sometime later this month, daily, 4 until 9 p.m., and it's delicious.
Okay, thank you. Now back to Ian. Talk about the little restaurant that could. Lots of adversity, huh?
Little is, when we're talking about Jendusa's Italian Market, little only applies to the restaurant itself, right? This is a restaurant that I said the line on them is they feed you twice there because every meal you order is bound to be leftovers. Well, Jendusa's had really had a following that had built in a relatively short time on Williams Boulevard in Rivertown, in Kenner. Well, lo and behold, it burns down one morning, a Tuesday morning. Troy Jendusa, the owner, shows up. The place is in flames. The building is a loss. He's at a loss. I speak to the man the day of the fire. He doesn't know what he's going to do, but he says he's going to find some way to carry on, maybe a pop-up, maybe a food truck, maybe something. Well, behind the scenes, Peggy, here's the incredible part. People were coming together to support this guy, this restaurant, this place that they loved. And we're talking about people from all across the New Orleans, not just restaurant spectrum, but event rental companies, purveyors, vendors, city officials in Kenner. They all got together and basically constructed a temporary outdoor restaurant that is now the second home of Jendusa's Italian Market. It's directly across the street from the charred remains of the original restaurant. And it is built around a huge trailer-based mobile kitchen, a big tent. And this isn't just a tent out there in a parking lot. It's got a door, it's got air conditioning, it's got tables. I mean, they basically have constructed a second restaurant for this guy right across the street. A big volunteer effort, people donating tables and chairs, purveyors showing up with stuff, ice machines. By the time I caught up with this guy 2 days after he was standing in front of his burnt out restaurant, he was ready to reopen Jennas in this fashion. Incredible. Pretty amazing. Yeah, so they're going at it out there. It may take months to build that restaurant, but so far they're committed to keeping the restaurant going and the parking lot across the street, serving dinner, lunch on Sundays right now, but always best to check ahead for hours. He's quite active on his Facebook page with updates there. If ever there was a time we needed some good restaurant news, this was it, isn't it? It's still New Orleans. What can I tell you? We're the restaurant scene's on the ropes, but it's still New Orleans. Yeah. People. Okay. Thank you. And back to Alfred. Some local theater news, movie theater that is.
Yes, of course. I have to wear my mask because when you're going into our local theaters, we're always telling you to wear the mask. No one cared about me before I put on the mask. Of course, this is straight from one of the films that's going to be shown at the Britannia, and that is The Dark Knight Rises. It is the third in the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman and, of course, The Masked Man Bane. And they're also going to be featuring the last of the Harry Potter films, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So you get to see the Batman trilogy and, of course, the end of the Harry Potter films at the Britannia. Again, they're taking great precautions there, and they're requesting that everyone wear the mask. And yes, wear the mask. And I'm going to take that off for now at this point. See, that's my real face. At the Broad Theater, there's some really good offerings there, but the three that stand out for me, one is a great documentary. It is called John Lewis, Good Trouble. It is about the U.S. Representative John Lewis of Georgia, who was a civil rights icon. He was there on Bloody Sunday when civil rights marchers were attempting to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and he was assaulted. But he survived and has thrived and has been one of the focal points, meeting people all the way from Dr. King to President Barack Obama, living to this point. Great documentary film. And if you're into dressing into the 1980s, and I know many of my Six Hand Stompers would probably agree with this, they have a double feature, Breakin' and Beat Street. I'm surprised they didn't have Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, but that may come later on this week. But again, that's there at the Broad. At the Chalmette Movies, they have several different features, but the one that stands out for me is a film called A Quiet Storm. It's about a young music student, a female music student who lives in the 9th Ward, who witnesses a crime in the aftermath, and she now has to deal with that aftermath with her family members and her brother, who is implicated in the crime. Again, at the Chalmette Movies, a very good opportunity for some enlightening film choices. And as I mentioned, you can also have some fun at the Britannia.
Thank you. Back to Alan. More theater online. Thanks to you, Alan.
Well, yes, indeed. It was a joy for me to have Leslie Castay play Camille and Carl Palmer play Sugar this past Monday in John Bigonet's Rising Water, which was just a tremendous piece. Of course, they played the doomed couple this past Monday night, and dealing with the first of the three plays about Hurricane Katrina, directed by Greg Johnson. I want to remind everybody that we just received the clearance for us to have Shotgun, that second of the three plays. That'll be presented on July the 27th, and they're doing the casting of that right now. You'll see that on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, and also be broadcast to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, as well as my own YouTube channel, which you can look up as well. And then on the final Monday night in August the 31st, which coincides with the exact day that Katrina landed, the last Monday in August, they're going to have Mold, the final part of that trilogy. Again, we hope that we'll have more to tell you about that as we get close to the date. But don't forget that this coming Monday night, we're going to have a conversation with Rosary O'Neill, the playwright and author, who will be discussing several things, including the recently live streamed Maryland God, the one that's going to be coming up, which is Clark Loves Carol, about Clark Gable and Carol Lombard's romance, as well as perhaps Degas, New Orleans, and Kate Chopin, The Awakening of Kate Chopin, which are both set in New Orleans and Louisiana proper. And coming up next week, Donald Lewis, one of the great versatile actors in our town, will be my guest on July the 10th. So we want everybody to know about that. And coming up this week also on the Shows Must Go On, the Andrew Lloyd Webber channel, they're presenting Michael Flatley from 2005. This was after the Lord of the Dance, but it's called Celtic Tiger or Celtic Tiger, depending on which way you want to pronounce it, but Michael Flatley at his best. And Peggy, as you know, among the many celebrants of my birthday, aside from the late Zero Mostel, Tommy Toon, William Finn, Brent Barrett, and Mercedes Rule, is this lady, and Seth Rudetsky, but we're not going to mention him, this lady, Bernadette Peters, who is just one of the biggest names on Broadway. She's going to be starring in a streaming concert from 2009 to benefit Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. That'll be on Friday, July the 10th.
All right, and now time for our picks of the week. Poppy.
Good news from Bellegarde Bakery. They have new retail hours. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, they will be there from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with their breads and their freshly milled flour, grits, pastas, pizza doughs, sauces. Go see Grace and Gil for that yummy stuff. And Tuesday, the Crescent City Farmers Market Walk-Up Market is going to reopen at Uptown Square on Broadway this Tuesday, 8 a.m. until noon.
That's great news. And
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
When I think about steak, Peggy, a part of me is always thinking about the Argentinian way with steak that they do them down at La Boca. La Boca is back. They have some outdoor seats now for the first time out on Chapatula Street. And I was thrilled to see them back with all their Argentinian-style steaks, the provoleta, the nice Malbec wines. Great to see them back. Don't even think about trying to get past Chef Adolfo Garcia without a face mask. Just do it right and enjoy.
Good for him. Alfred.
A cross between Late Night with David Letterman and Sesame Street is my pick from HBO Max. It's called The Not Too Late Show with Elmo. So picture our little red guy holding up and doing his top 10 list. Yay!
Alan.
And as I follow Alfred, I want to make mention again about the Chalmette Cinemas having Passing Strange, the Spike Lee musical that is going to be there for the next week. Also, don't forget, JPAS is going to have their big concert. It's a fundraiser as well for JPAS. Consider making a donation for them. Dennis Asaf has the baton, Ronnie Cole, Dr. Leo Day, Stephen Rushing, Nancy Ross, Ariel Asaf, and the McTurgett Irish Dancers, among many others. Red, White, and Boom. You can find it on your local channels. And Peggy, I'll see you at the theater.
Thank you. And before I go to my picks, we want to remember float builder Blaine Kern, who passed away recently. Bacchus and Endymion are just a few of the crews that he helped grow. Here's a look at his early career from the 1998 WYES documentary, Mardi Gras, The Passing Parade.
Someone who knows floats inside and out is Blaine Kern. For a half-century, Kern has been responsible for building the floats of many parades. The son of a sign painter from Algiers, Kern combined a love for art and Mardi Gras. He started helping his father build floats for neighborhood crews and took art lessons.
Oh, yeah, Leonard Flutteridge, John McCready. Look, I worked with great guys. In other words, and I mean talented individuals.
Apprenticing to longtime float builders Henry Soule and Harry Crassons, Kern learned his craft. By 1953, he was building the Rex Parade. His big break came in the mid-50s, when the new captain of Rex wanted to add some visual excitement to the parade.
Darwin Fenner was a very worldly man. And he said, Blaine, we're going to really improve Rex. I'm going to send you over to Viareggio in Italy.
Carnival in Viareggio is renowned for its animated figures made from papier-mâché.
He said, Blaine, I want to make this, and after I'd come back from Europe, I want to make our parade look like that over there. He sent me over, and I don't know, it was mid-20s or something like that, and my God, my eyes opened up. I was looking at genius, and they showed me how they did some of this animation, and they would this is something you'd never learn in a school, but I went not only there, I went to a Carnival de Nice, I went to Carnival de Mans, Frankfurt and Cologne, Prince Carnival, and I went then to Valencia, as they say. And anyway, but I got what a tremendous education. I saw the incredible colors that the Italians have, the walking heads and figures, and found absolutely went crazy about it. But he did this out of his own pocket. He paid, the Rex organization didn't pay. He did this on his own.
He was more than just a stockbroker. He was a very imaginative man, a guy who believed in the tradition of Rex and who really ran the group with a great eye to tradition and to originality.
The first year we imported 3 or 4 figures, I forget what it was, and we did some work ourselves, some of the animation. But I also brought in the colors that were from Italy, which were much more brilliant, and stronger.
Kern's business kept growing. Yet if ever there was a temptation, it was a job offer from one of America's most famous creators of popular entertainment.
Disney offered me a job to come to work for him. This is the true story. But Darwin Fenner said, son, let me tell you, you're going to do good out there. He says, you're good and you're going to make it out there, but you're going to be a big fish, but in a big, big pond. He says, you stay right here in New Orleans, you'll be a big fish in a little pond. He says, Mardi Gras is opening to everybody. This guy was a visionary. He says, everybody's going to be a part of this, and says, it should be. He said this. He says, you'll be building more floats and everything. You stay here. And man, Walt Disney was like a god to me. Man, I said no, but yet, because he was proven so right.
By the way, the Passing Parade, a compendium of Mardi Gras memories, is available on DVD at WYES.org. Now my picks, Festing on the 4th, features Amanda Shaw, Flow Tribe, and other bands. It's located at Bucktown Harbor Park. Starts at 3 p.m., concludes with fireworks at 9 p.m. Resembling a tailgate party, you can purchase tickets and then get details at visitjeffersonparish.com. And that, of course, is something to look forward to. And maybe if you can't get tickets, you can still see the fireworks right around there. And on Monday at 8 o'clock, WYES presents The Vote, a history of the efforts of American women to get the right to vote. Followed at 10 p.m., of course, by a discussion of local efforts hosted by Marcia Cavanaugh with curators from the Historic New Orleans Collection who have a new virtual exhibit on that topic. So tune in on WYES or WYES.org. Thank you all very much. Thank you, my pals. Happy 4th of July.
Bye, Peg.
Happy
Goodbye.
4th.
Happy 4th.
Good night.
This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area. Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Christovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Christovich.